Folks, I'm Kerry Farr. Welcome to In Your Corner. It's an honor and a delight for me to welcome a dear friend to the set tonight. JohnBuddyWest is a young man that I met when he was 10 or 11 years of age. And at 10 or 11 years of age, he had already boxed nearly 100 times in a boxing ring. He ended up being a national Golden Glove champion and beat numerous boxers as an amateur that ended up being world champions. Buddy, what an honor to see you on In Your Corner. Thanks for attending.
Kerry, thanks for everything you ever did.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I was going to say buddy, like Buddy, but you've always been my buddy.
Yeah. You know, you've done a lot for boxing in Nashville. You've done a lot for me, and I really appreciate everything you've ever done.
Well, the same goes here. I mean, you know, you started out as a young man, you know, fighting, what, at 8 or 9 years of age?
Started fighting at 9, yeah.
Started fighting at 9, and by the time I had started a gym, you had already had, about 100 fights. So I was bringing these young guys up, and you were sparring with them and spanking them because they didn't have any experience, and you really helped my guys improve, and I want to thank you for that.
No, I love boxing. I mean, what can I say? It's my drug.
Yeah, yeah, and so many. But, you know, I want to go back to one fight in particular where you really helped somebody. You know, I trained and managed, as you well know, a boxer by the name of Ken the Bull Atkin.
Yeah.
Rough, tough guy, you know, not a great boxer. So I get the call one day from a fellow by the name of Harold Smith, the same Harold Smith that had embezzled $20 million from Wells Fargo Bank, and at one time had signed, because he had somebody else's money, had signed more professional boxers than Don King and Bob Arum. He had a huge stable. But he called me and he said, Kerry, we need somebody to fight the great Thomas Hitman Hearns. And he said, I understand you've got this tough guy, Ken the Bull Atkin. Would you like to put him with Tommy? I said, yeah, man, we'd love to fight Tommy Hearns. I mean, you know, fighter trains for an opportunity like that. And of course, everybody thought that Ken was going to get murdered when he fought Hearns. And here you were, nearly 6 foot tall, about the same height as Tommy Hearns, and you had had every bit as many fights, and you were this amazing, fast boxer. And so over the next 8 weeks, Ken probably sparred 70 or 80 rounds with you, and it really helped him. When he fought Tommy Hearns, I mean, he lost the fight. He got cut in the 3rd round, but for 3 rounds, he was very competitive, and I think it was because he had sparred with such a good boxer before he went out there.
Thank you. I don't know if it was me, but I mean, Ken had a lot of go to him at first. You know, I mean, he had that bull, as he was called. You know, he had that bull to him. So yeah, I don't know. I did it. Ken was a good fighter.
He had a lot of heart, and one of the things that we did for 8 weeks is we taught him to roll the shoulder so that when Tommy threw that big right hand, he rolled underneath it, and so Tommy never caught him with that right hand. But let's go back, you know, to your career. You know, tell us some of the highlights of your boxing career.
As an amateur, I guess the one thing that I always wanted to do was fight on the U.S. team, and I accomplished that. It wasn't necessarily winning the nationals, because as being young, I won the national silver gloves. I won the national PAL, you know, and the nationals wasn't that big of a deal for me.
So how many national titles did you win?
4 altogether.
So you won 4 national titles. Folks, 4 national titles in the United States of America. How many people have done that? I mean, there's not 1/10 of 1% of the people that have done that, buddy.
Usually I'm okay with bragging on myself, but you put a TV camera in front of me and it's rougher. Fighting on the U.S. team was the top of my game right there.
Where did you go and who did you fight?
We fought against Poland in Chicago. Got to go to the Olympic Training Center up in Colorado. There was 2 guys that were competing for the bantamweight class. It was me and Melvin Lewis.
Yeah.
I fought Melvin Lewis about my 3rd open division fight, and I felt like I got robbed. Melvin Lewis at the time was one of the representatives of the U.S. team, one of the voted because he had fought on the U.S. team so many times. And I really got my revenge on him in the camp. I mean, it got to the point to where he wasn't even showing up anymore to the gym. He was staying out all night, you know. Coach Roosevelt Sanders at the time.
I remember Roosevelt.
Asked me to take it easy on him. I was like, Coach, I can't do it. I've got a little vengeance I got to pay back. So that was my highlight. Turning pro, fighting on, you know, ESPN, training in the same gym with Sugar Ray Leonard. All that wasn't necessarily my goal. My goal was fight on the U.S. team. I always wanted to. Lauren Ross. Lauren Ross was one of my heroes. He fought on the U.S. team, kind of made me want to do it.
Yeah, but Lauren Ross, I mean, a lot of people don't know this. Lauren Ross at one time was ranked like #2 in the world as an amateur, and you know, could spank guys like Riddick Bowe and you know, Ray Mercer. I mean, as an
no doubt.
As an amateur, he would just beat those guys up, you know, unmercifully. And what most people don't know is that Lauren Ross came out of Nashville and actually lived in your house, and your dad and you guys helped get him started and encouraged him to go in the Army.
Yeah, my dad did. My dad did that. Lauren Ross was a natural, the best fighter I've ever seen. Roy Jones Jr., no. Lauren Ross, best one I've ever seen.
He was incredible, and you know, and I'm surprised that he didn't win a world championship, because I mean, he was just incredible. He would just jump on a guy and start throwing punches, and the other guy couldn't do anything.
Could outbox him, could do whatever he wanted to do. He was that good.
I actually wanted to get Lauren on the program, and I still do. I don't have his number, so we've got to get in touch with Lauren and have him on.
I can get him.
You can get him, so we're good. And folks, I want to tell you, you know, you look at Buddy West. You're watching Buddy here on television, and he's 41 years of age now. But you look at him and you say, well, that guy, he's kind of thin. You know, I think I could handle him. And Buddy, how many times? I mean, I was there. You were in the boxing gym. You were 5'11", 130, 140 pounds, and these big muscle-bound guys would come in off of the street, and they would want to spar with you, and you would just spank the daylights out of them. And I think you enjoyed that, didn't you?
I loved it. I wished I did have another 10 pounds and weighed 140. I only weighed 130 at my top fighting weight, but yeah, just that I'm bad. I'm got muscles. I'm a street fighter. It's a whole nother world in the corners.
Yeah. And you had so much experience, and I mean, you talk about Lauren Ross and what a great boxer he was, but you know, truly, you were such an amazing boxer, and we talked about this earlier when we had Jonathan Reed and Keith McKnight on the program that we all did together, and you know, there are not many white guys that really had that fluid mobility, and you were one of those guys that could box, you know, box real, you know, with a lot of mobility and a lot of combinations, and you know, and
natural. I mean, it's either you have it or you don't. I mean, you can teach a lot of stuff in boxing. You can teach shape. You can teach how to move certain ways. But in order to be able to do it all, you got to be natural. And like you say, most white boys aren't. Keith McKnight is one of them that is.
Well, you know, but you started so young too. You started at 9 years of age.
Faked the birth certificate so I could fight.
Is that right?
Yes. Yes. My dad whited out the year and made me a year older just so I could box in as a real fights instead of just exhibitions.
Yeah. Well, let's go back, you know, and talk about a couple of fights. You know, I was in Dallas, Texas in 2001, and I went over to Fort Worth, and I went to the gym where then world champion Paulie Aiello was training. And so I introduced myself to Paulie and told him who I was, and I said, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee, and he said, you know, when I fought in the National Golden Gloves, there was a guy by the name of John West that beat me, and now this is the champion of the world telling me this. There was a guy by the name of John West that beat me in the National Golden Gloves. And I said, well, you're talking about JohnBuddyWest, a dear friend of mine. And go back and tell us about, you know, the fight with Paulie Aiello when you were an amateur.
Paulie Aiello, National Golden Gloves, 1989, semifinals of the Nationals. It was that day they had a matinee session, which was the quarterfinals during the day, semifinals at night. I was the only fighter that drew in the bantamweight division that drew the 2 fights that day. So I had already fought Tom Anderson, I think was his name, that morning, and beat him. Fought Paulie Ayala that evening. I didn't see a lot in Paulie Ayala at the time. Maybe he, plateaued later on in life, but at the time, there wasn't much to it. The next night, in the finals, I went on to fight Frederick Norwood, which became a world champion. But Paulie Ayala there was really nothing to it.
Yeah, it wasn't one of your tougher fights.
No, it wasn't.
How about Freddie?
Freddie was southpaw. I've always had a little bit of problem with southpaws. My game with southpaws has always been take it to them.
Fight him.
Go to them. Take that mobility away from them, that awkwardness. You put a guy on his bicycles, and it don't matter if he's right or left-handed, he's still going backwards.
Yeah.
He's not moving left, he's not moving right. You put him going backwards, if you can do that, you can take a lot away from him. And that was always my goal with southpaw. That's what I did with Frederick Norwood.
And not only that, there was a tremendous boxer out of New York that ended up being a world champion, junior, Poison Jones.
Poison Ivy Jones, yeah.
And you beat him.
I beat him. I beat him in the Junior Olympics. He beat me once in the Junior Olympics. The following year, I come back and beat him. So there's been a couple that I beat. And that kind of, when I come back to Nashville, and it's hard to make it out of Nashville, especially as a lower weight class.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, if you're in the lower weight classes, you've got to be in Vegas, or you've got to be in Mexico, or in the Orient.
Yeah. Well, I turned pro in Vegas, and I had that opportunity. It's hard turning 19 years old in Vegas. It's hard being somewhere you shouldn't be at the time. Had a great deal when I did turn pro. My first 3 pro fights were on ESPN. Yeah. Top Rank held my promotional contract, but I feel like I should have. I mean, I grew up in a trailer park. I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to being on my own. I wasn't used to people in my ear telling me exactly what I got to do, how I got to do it. That's fine. And maybe I should have been ready for it, but I wasn't. And it's the way it is. Life hands you certain things, and everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, but you've got so many great memories and did so many great things.
I love it.
And you've got a beautiful family now.
I do.
Wife and how many girls?
I've got 2 daughters. One, Jasmine, she's in University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, and Holly, my 15-year-old, which is on her way to be a supermodel. I don't know, she's going to be about 6 foot tall before it's over with.
Well, what would you tell somebody starting out today that wanted to learn how to fight? Let's talk about boxing theory and boxing technique, and what would you encourage someone to do?
If you're gonna box, you better test your heart. You're like I said just a few minutes ago. I can teach somebody how to punch, how to not get hit, how to get in shape. But there's an old saying, what is it? If you're gonna be stupid, you better be tough.
Yeah.
If you're gonna climb in the ring, you're almost stupid.
Yeah.
Because you're in there to fight somebody.
Right.
Now, with that being said, you better be tough. You better have the heart to carry you through when you get hit. When you get tired and you don't think you can go no more and somebody else is ready to pound you, you better have the heart to do it. Heart is everything in this ring.
And one of the things that I used to always tell my fighters, tough will get you killed. I mean, you need to be tough, but you need to have the boxing skill that you have.
Oh, yeah.
Because these guys that are tough and just bang, I mean, they're going to, if show me a fighter that's easy to hit, and I'll show you a fighter that's easy to beat.
Yeah, if you, like I said, you can teach people anything you want them to learn. If they're willing to learn, you can teach them. But you can't teach them heart. And Mike Tyson is one of the ones I'll say that about. He was one of the toughest boxers you'll ever find. He was one of the meanest fighters you'll ever find. But when his heart got tested, when he got to that point to where his heart got tested, it was over for him.
He failed. Yeah. Against Holyfield, against Buster Douglas, when those guys that could stand up to the bully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Buster Douglas fought him to a T. He took his heart away from him. He tied him up when he got close. Referee said break. Buster Douglas hit him on the break so many times, it was pathetic. it just frustrated him. It took everything away from him. It took his heart. You know what? He couldn't intimidate him like he had been intimidating everybody else. But he was tough. World champion, one of the best world champions ever, just because of his record. Take his heart away from him, he'll bite your ear.
So many, yeah, that's right. He'd take his heart away and he resorted to dirty tactics like he did with Holyfield, trying to bite his ear off. And I've seen fighters over the years who maybe wanted to quit, but they didn't want anybody to know they wanted to quit, so they'd do something like bite somebody's ear or foul somebody so they'd get disqualified.
Right. I mean, heart, it's all, to me, boxing was about heart. When I stepped in the ring, it was my home. I've seen times when I walked into the gym and anybody that wanted to spar, no matter how many it was, would line up on the other side, and I would stand on my side of the gym. I love sparring. I love that feel of when I hit somebody and I could feel through hand wraps and gloves and leather and skin, and I could feel bone to bone. Oh, it just put chills down me. It still does when I think about it, hair standing up. I love it. That's why I still have to climb in the ring every once in a while and scratch the edge.
Yeah, well, there's an old-timers tournament coming up real soon.
There you go.
Yeah, you can jump back in there. We can still find you somebody.
Couldn't find nobody then around here.
I know it. You always had to fight somebody 20 or 30 pounds heavier, didn't you?
At least.
Yeah. Well, what are you doing these days? I mean, you still live in Nashville, Tennessee, or in the Nashville, Tennessee area? I
moved outside of Nashville. I live up in Ashton City, up in Cheatham County. Didn't necessarily wanted more of a slow town for my kids. I work with the Nashville Fire Department. Kind of corny. I'm almost the Ward Cleaver of life. When it comes to my kids, I talk to them about anything, everything.
You're a family man.
Yes, I am. The job that I have, I went from the water department to the fire department. I took a cut in pay because I knew what it stood for. I knew what it was about, and I know it sounds corny, but I love helping people. I'm the one that pulls over when you got a flat tire. So that's me. Life has been really great. I mean, every day, somebody asks me how I'm doing, life is great. Yeah. Every day above ground is a good day, and if you can get up, walk, and talk, it's great. Yeah,
well, you've always had such a good attitude. And what did boxing teach you about overcoming adversity in life?
Well, as I said, I grew up in the trailer park. We moved when the rent came due up until I was 12 years old. 12 years old, parents finally bought a place. We parked and took the wheels off of it. You know, that's all good and everything. I always had a roof over my head. My dad taught me that. My dad's philosophy in life was to raise me better than he was raised. He did that. Now, if I can do that for my kids, I will. As far as boxing goes, it taught me discipline. It kept me out of the streets. I've got friends that, didn't turn out, not that I turned out great or anything, but they didn't turn out nowhere near it, missing teeth, their own crack, whatever. I didn't grow up in the best part of town. Boxing kept me out of it. It kept me involved. It kept me doing something other than hanging out on the streets. It took me around the world. I mean, it took me around the United States. I've been to almost every state. I've been to Canada. I fought on the U.S. team in Canada. I've been to New Mexico. I could have went to Finland and fought. I lived in Las Vegas, all because of boxing. The Olympic Training Committee paid me to stay amateur. They pay their top 2 fighters in each weight division, So when I become open division and got ranked, it helped me out with my bills or, running around money, and it kept me straight. And boxing's been great. I mean, it taught me a lot of discipline.
Well, let me ask you, obviously, I mean, I remember you were what I would consider a master boxer. Let's talk about different styles of boxing. I mean, you've got a boxer, you've got a banger, you've got a puncher, but what's the best way for somebody coming up? What kind of style should they use as a fighter?
See, you're asking somebody, you talk about my natural ability. My natural ability was I could box, I could slug, I could counter, I could whatever it took to do it. So that's what you can't be one style boxer. If you're only one style, you'll be figured out. You've got to be versatile. You've got to be able to adapt and overcome to your opponent. I mean, so
the good fighters will figure you out. If you're fighting one way, they'll say, okay, I've got to do this to stop him from doing that. So you have to be like a chameleon. You have to be able to change, don't you?
Yes, I mean, and you've got to, even though you've got one style, I mean, a lot of boxers, Roy Jones Jr., He's got one style. But
now,
you know
you
what?
and
He
Roy
can
came
change
up
style.
basically about the same time, didn't you?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
He was a couple years older than me, but I mean, we fought on the same circuit, you know.
Did you
same
fight
region.
on some of the same shows with him when you were coming up? Do you remember?
Oh, as far as amateur?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We fought in the regionals together. We fought in the nationals together.
Yeah.
I remember Roy Jones Jr., maybe I shouldn't say this on TV, but one morning we was going to breakfast, and he didn't have the money for breakfast. But, you know, you talking about somebody that really came up poor, yeah, he did. They'd take their per diem money. I remember them taking his per diem money, go buy sandwich meat and a loaf of bread and some Kool-Aid. And, of course, his dad and I think it was his uncle and his little brother was all with him in Chattanooga. They'd take that money and they'd go get that, and that's what they would eat.
So all of them could eat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember anything else about, I mean, people love to hear about, you know, these great fighters. I mean, you were there with Roy Jones. Do you remember any other camps where you remember something like that?
Let's see. I want to say Johnny Tapia. You remember Johnny Tapia?
I remember Johnny is not.
Recently passed away,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I remember him sweating just barely making weight, just barely making it right in the nick of time in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I remember Lauren Ross fighting Evander Holyfield. Of course, Evander Holyfield was from Georgia. That's where Lauren's front tooth is false. That's where it came from.
Evander knocked his tooth out?
Yeah.
Who won that fight? Evander beat him?
Evander beat him in the Southern Golden Gloves.
Yeah.
You know, that was before Lauren went to the Army and he became world ranked. So
Yeah, Lauren was a great fighter.
yeah.
You know, I remember Emmanuel Stewart saying that all of those famous Kronk fighters, they would go on a trip and they had to split a hamburger 5 ways. And I asked Tommy Hearns and Milton McCrory about that one time, and they said, we were never that poor.
Yeah.
You know, he said, so sometimes some of these coaches embellish and tell those stories.
Oh yeah, well I'm not embellishing one on Roy Jones Jr. They had this old station wagon, you know, what is it? The vacation station wagon from the movie. Yeah, that's what they had, and they would pile up in it, and that's the way they'd ride.
They'd show up, and they didn't have the money. The whole team would be with him, and he would take his per diem money and buy a loaf of bread and lunch meat so they could all eat.
A lot of times it was just him. Now, because it was an open division tournament, so it was only him. His little brother fought, but his little brother wasn't in the tournament because it's an open division tournament. But yeah, they'd take per diem money and they'd go buy sandwich meat, bologna, whatever it was, you know.
When you saw Roy back then, did you think he was going to be a great world champion someday? Did you see that?
Honestly, yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, yes. I seen Roy Jones get beat one time. Obie Beard beat him. Obie Beard beat him in his hometown. It was a close decision. It probably could have went either way. But
Obie beat him in Jackson or in Pensacola?
Jackson.
He beat him in his hometown.
Yeah.
Of course, the great coach Rayford Collins that had all of those great fighters. Obie Beard, you know, Ricky Beard, Jackie Beard, Darrell Fuller, Donald Bowers, and Donald is another fighter that died recently.
Yeah.
You know, but he had all of those great, and so Roy Jones came to Jackson, Tennessee, and got beat by Obie Beard.
Obie Beard, yep.
Well, it's amazing. Well,
ran into Obie Beard a couple days ago.
Well, yeah, I guess that was fun seeing him, huh?
Well, it's kind of crazy. Matter of fact, I moved my daughter into UTC. His daughter is a roommate of my daughter's. He's sitting in my daughter's room there.
In Chattanooga?
In Chattanooga, yeah.
At the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Run into Obie Beard, 2 old fighters. 2 old, tremendous fighters.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Well, 2 to 40, young to me, 2 40-year-old former, both of you guys. And Obie, you know, was one of the great amateurs, too. That didn't, I don't think he ever fought pro.
He said he fought 3.
Did he? He had 3 professional fights.
Of course, he was with, Emmanuel Lewis.
Emmanuel Stewart?
Emmanuel Stewart,
yeah. So he went to Detroit for a while.
I don't know that he went to Detroit, but that's who was promoting him at the time.
And then, yeah, because I think Emmanuel, I know with Jackie, Rayford Collins trained Jackie, and he stayed in Jackson, and that probably was a mistake too, because Jackie was a 126-pounder in the 80 Olympic trials, and he should have been somewhere where he could have got all the work also.
Yeah, that's one thing I kind of think I could have did in my career. I think I could have, had I waited a little bit, I could have made a contract to where I could stay here when a fight wasn't going on. When come time for a camp, I could have went to camp. But you know, I don't kick myself too much. Like I said, I got a great family, got a great job. Life is great.
Life is great for you. And buddy, you know, you were in our gym after you came back from Vegas for 4 or 5 years, and you were such a great asset to our team. But really, we didn't have anybody. I mean, you were working with heavyweights, middleweights, and light. We didn't have anybody that was your size that that had the skill to work with you.
No, but I was grateful for what I had.
Yeah.
I was grateful for you for letting me come out there and train. You never charged me a dime, and I appreciate it. You helped find me some fights. I appreciate it. You never asked anything of me.
But you gave so much to us. I mean, our guys, as I said earlier, I mean, you had so many fights, and they were coming up behind you, and they ended up being tremendous fighters too. But a lot of that was attributed to you and guys like Anthony Bryant and people like that were good pros that helped them, learn how to box.
I've never had a problem with if one of your fighters I seen something they needed to work on, and I would tell them, you never stepped up and said, hey, this is my fight.